Good evening and welcome to the Real Estate Plate radio show. As always, I'm your host, Nick Sakalis, coming to you live from the WGBB studios here in lovely Merrick, New York. And yeah, it is lovely, but it's hot. It is so damn hot today, and it's only going to get hotter as the week goes on. But I'm not complaining. At least it's not monsoons, and at least we're able to work. I'm happy about that. You know, it could be a lot worse having torrential storms and that kind of a thing. But I'm not going to get into that whole situation. I'm going to do my normal weekly plug for Starbucks. I'm still waiting for my sponsorship, and I'm definitely going to be keep doing this until they decide to sponsor the show. So I had a lot of different calls that came into me after last week's show, a lot of questions, a lot of different type of feedback that came in. And first of all, the one thing that I've got questions about more than anything else is, what is that squeaky noise? You hear that squeaky noise that's happening right now? That squeaky noise is actually this wonderful table that's from 1902 that has been left here in the studio and needs to somewhat be adjusted and stop squeaking on us, but
I'll take care of it. I didn't know.
You didn't hear it?
No, but I'll take care of it.
I've actually heard so many.
Oh, really?
I got so many emails like, "What is that squeaky noise?" I'm like,
I'll take care of it. I didn't know.
I didn't realize that because I'm sitting and talking full blown, and until somebody pointed that out to me, I never got it. But
Is that good listening?
I guess so. I don't.
Listen to them.
And I guess the audio is better. And speaking of which audio, I am actually making adjustments today with our audio system for the Facebook Live feed. If it is better than it's been in the past, please send a comment, put a like, something to that effect, just so I know that we're on the right track and I'm actually spending money on the right type of equipment. Otherwise, I'd be spending it in the wrong places. And I just want to make the overall experience and the quality of the sound better, along with the video. So we're getting technologically advanced. We're actually in the zone of having 1080p video. I know that we're in the 4K, 6K kind of realm, but let's one step at a time. We got the 1080p type video format. We have an actual real microphone that actually gives better audio. Hopefully, it's better audio. And let's see if the experience is overall better for everybody. But I did get a lot of other type of questions and feedback. I don't know what you call it. And I'm just going to say this. So we spoke about something last week as far as an individual that was doing like really unscrupulous type of things in the business, and things that are really not professional. And I've had so many people call up and email me or private message me asking me who that individual was and what was the name of it. And honestly, I'm not at this point ready to be reveal that person's name, because one, then I'd be the one that's unprofessional calling other people out. And the last thing you want to do is actually start pointing the finger at other people. I just gave everybody the scenario of what happened and letting you know what actually happens in our industry and what the background and things that people are doing. So that's basically what I'm looking at. And at this point, I just made an example and making people a little bit wary of what's going on. But you know, the other thing that I wanted to also make a point of, one of the topics that I get emailed and messaged about and get inquiries and questions about more than anything else is with agents that are newer to the business or brand new to the business. They are looking where to get themselves started and how to approach the business in certain ways, and what's the best company to go to and that kind of thing. And honestly, there's no one simple question, a simple answer for everybody, because really everybody's situation is a little different. And I'm going to dedicate the show next week to helping a lot of newer agents and brand new agents as well, uh, as far as a guide, and kind of give you a guideline of how to approach this business, how to get yourself started, and hopefully that helps you at least get on the right foot. It gives you a little bit of advice that I never got when I was first starting, and I would have been very appreciative of getting at that point. So hopefully I'll be able to help everybody. Maybe I'll have a couple of newer agents or agents that are just starting or just getting their license on, basically running through a couple questions, that kind of thing, and hopefully helping out everybody in the best way possible. So I'm going to start off the show officially by asking you a question that I know I've gotten time and multiple times a day, every single day, asked to me, and I'm sure many of you out there have asked the same question, and I'm sure many of you out there have had this question asked to you. And that question is it negotiable? Just to give everybody a second to think about that question. Is it negotiable? The reason why I'm pausing is I'm going to actually give a whole guideline and give everybody understanding of, when you ask a question like that, it is a fully loaded question, and you don't necessarily have a straight answer for that. First of all, I'll tell you one of my biggest pet peeves out there, absolute pet peeves, and drives me off the charts crazy, is when people ask me if something is negotiable before they even see it. Whether it's a house that they're buying, whether it's a condo, co-op, or a building, is it a rental? Doesn't matter what it is. I haven't even seen the place, and you're asking me if it's negotiable. You're losing every sense of credibility right off the bat just by asking me that question. Because more often times than any, when somebody asks me that question is, how could you ask me that question if you haven't even seen the place? Wouldn't you like to take a look at the place before you even consider asking me that question? And the other thing is, what do you mean by negotiable? What are we negotiating? Are we negotiating price? Is that what concerns you more than anything else? So if I tell you that the price is negotiable, but the terms are not negotiable in any way, and I haven't even disclosed any of the terms to you yet, is that okay with you? So if I make it all one-sided on the terms and the price is a little bit better than what it's being asked, is that going to make a difference to you? Like, a lot of times people don't think through these questions before they ask them, and it's a question, it's really a situation where you're kind of showing your cards and kind of taking an approach where it's not the best not the best way to negotiate. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of insider input and a little bit of a better understanding of how you should be really approaching this, because there's multiple ways how to approach a deal, and there's multiple ways of how to come to a good understanding of how to work with multiple things. And I'm a little bit in a dilemma a lot of times, because people come to me and they say, okay, Nick, I want to get the best possible deal I can on this place. Well, one, if I'm the listing agent, my job is to be able to get the most money possible for my seller. Simple as that. Doesn't matter if you're coming to me directly or if you're not coming to me directly. That's my job. That's my responsibility. That's my fiduciary duty to that seller to get them the most I can on the place. And anybody that has a listing or is representing property for an individual, landlord, seller, homeowner, whatever the case is, and tells you differently, they're basically not doing their job the correct way. And honestly, there's a whole issue of legality as far as where their loyalties and how they should be approaching their agency. So if you're coming to me in the way of whether things are negotiable and whether that's the only thing that's concerning you, I'm looking at I'm looking you as the individual buyer in a couple of different ways. So I'm going to be very blunt with everybody and kind of give you just direct the answer of how I visualize this person. I'm going to look at this person in a couple of different ways. One, this person's a bargain hunter, and they're just looking to figure out what they could do as bargaining. Two, they're a window shopper. They have no interest whatsoever on purchasing the place, but they just have nothing better to do in their lives as far as just seeing what prices things could go for. Three, they might actually be a competitor or a competing property that's on the market or possibly going on the market. They want to know where your mindset is on selling the place so they know how to take their approach on the sale of their property. Four, maybe they're a bottom feeder. Yeah, and I did say bottom feeder because there's plenty of them out there as far as people out there that are looking for basically rock bottom prices on places and just trying to almost like jackals or vultures, just sitting and sniffing around listings and looking if they could get it a lot less than what is being asked for. And sometimes it works depending on who the approach and depending on the listing and the urgency and the need of the seller to sell, whatever the case is. But it's not a great tactic because you're already painting a picture to me as a buyer that the only thing important to you is price. And yes, price is, if not the most important thing when a sale is made, one of the most important things, but it's not the only thing. It's not the only thing in any way whatsoever. You have a situation where a lot of times you get a great price on a place, but the terms are so lousy, whether it's for the seller or for the buyer, that it just doesn't make sense to make a deal. But you're getting all you want, or you're offering all the seller is asking, or if not more, but the terms are lousy, absolutely lousy. You have to take these things into consideration when you're asking these questions because you're dealing with a person most of the time on the other side that is analyzing everything you have to say. So as a seasoned professional that's been doing this for years, I'm almost like a part-time psychologist or bartender or whatever you want to call it, because half the time I'm sitting and analyzing, where's this person coming from? What is their intent? Why are they approaching me this way, and how are they approaching me? And I'm trying to gauge and try to get a better understanding of how to not only react to what they're telling me, how to prepare. So if somebody's called me up with in a certain way of asking me about, it's all related about negotiating and stuff like that, when I'm going to that listing presentation, that tour of the house for them and showing them the house or walking them through the house for the first time, I'm already mentally prepared that this person's going to come in and they're going to be trying to whittle me down on price. So I'm already on the defensive. I already have all the answers in my mind set in place, and I already know how to react to just about every single scenario you could possibly bring up to me. If you truly have an intention of coming into a place and trying to work the price down, the best approach is really go take a look at the place, see if you like it first of all, Because the worst thing you can do is negotiate a price on a place, then finally walk through it and you hate it, or it doesn't fit your criteria, you change your mind. And you just wasted a whole amount of time negotiating something that you're not going to buy anyway. And you wasted the agent's time too, and you wasted the seller's time, and you brought the seller's expectations up for some reason of purchasing the place for no reason at all. It makes no sense. So the best approach is go in, take a look at the place. If you like the place and there is intent of purchasing it, and you're a bargain hunter or trying to look for a better deal or that kind of, that's the time to start to bargain with people and start to. And I'll tell you something. The people that are not on Facebook Live and are listening, it's showing my hands going up, flapping right now, like flapping your mouth. Words mean nothing. You start the conversations, you start the negotiations always verbally, and you start the engaging in a verbal manner. But the words really mean nothing. Go in armed with credentials. If you're purchasing something with a loan, go in with a pre-approval. If you're buying something with cash, be ready to be able to provide proof of funds to show that it's not all words. You have some kind of backing. That's the way to approach things. And then you use the strength of your terms in order to be able to work out the price, if that's the way you want to go. If you got great terms and you're strong as a buyer, yeah, in a lot of cases you can work with the seller as far as coming to a meeting of minds, because you're coming in with something stronger on one side. They might not be getting what they want as far as price wise, but they're getting great terms and they'll be able to work it out, and vice versa. Sometimes if you don't have the greatest of terms, or you have some weird contingencies or something like that that you need to work with when you're purchasing a place, get ready to start paying, because you need something to basically override your weaker terms. And usually, if you're coming in with weaker terms, it's money. It's all about money. Be prepared to pay a higher price, and you'll be able to work it out the best way. That's really what it comes down to, you know. And I'm going to address this because I just got a couple of private messages that were just sent to me on my face. All right, so I'm going to I might as well just jump ahead of this before everything. Yes, I did shave. I don't have a beard right now. I don't know if it's going to be permanent. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. I don't know if I look better, if I look worse with this. It was hot. I was shaving. I missed the line. I ended up shaving everything because of that. So that's why you got what you got right now as far as my face is concerned. But that's basically it. That being said, I am going to drop that topic, and if you want to use it as a topic of conversation of whether I should keep a beard or not keep a beard, knock yourselves out. I'll probably decide to do what I do anyway, regardless, but we'll see. But one of the things that I wanted to really talk about that we haven't really jumped into, and it's been a really big topic, and it doesn't affect the island as much at this moment, but it has been a really adversarial point of polarizing opposites of the way everybody stands in the boroughs, because most of the stabilized buildings that we know about are in the boroughs. So I'm not sure how many people are familiar with the new laws that are passing and what's going on with the way we're going to be observing and being able to work with stabilization laws on mostly affecting multi-family buildings, usually 6 and over, Although there are some cases where they have smaller buildings that are like that, and not necessarily all of them are in effect, but we're talking about a lot of units that are being affected. And what is going to pass is basically a stop order, for lack of a better way of putting it. There's going to be a stop order on how much landlords could increase stabilized apartments. In the past, when a stabilized rental unit would vacate, the landlord had the opportunity to be able to raise the rent immediately by up to 20%. Sometimes it would be 18% for 1 year lease or 20% for a 2 year lease, and depending on the year, they had the opportunity to make those changes. That's out the window now. That can't be done. The other thing that has really upset a lot of people are the major capital improvements. They have capped off the annual increases that you can apply on a unit to 2%, which was basically at 6% before, which wasn't tremendous, but it was something. But they capped it off. So, and the other thing is they can't take a deduction of more than $15,000 per improvement on an apartment. So if you have a scenario where you have a place that's a complete mess and it needs to be completely redone, remodeled, and we're talking about the thing might cost you 50 grand to be able to rehab it and bring it to where it needs to be, you're not going to be able to recoup that money as a landlord, because basically they're telling you you're capped off at 2% on the increases. And not only that, after 15 years, those increases have to stop. So what does that mean? I'll tell you exactly what it means. Welcome back to the slumlord days. Because I promise you, you're going to have a ton of landlords that are going to refuse to put some money into their places. They're going to do the very bare minimum, if so much, to patch things up every time something goes wrong. They're basically going to stick everything back together with gum and scotch tape and not care what the visual looks like, because they're not going to get the increase, because they're never going to get the return back. And here's the other problem. You have a ton of people that just bought multifamily buildings with the perspective that they're able to one by one fix these apartments and actually get a return on that they paid premiums on. And we're talking about super premiums, not like, you know, a higher, like a mediocre cap rate. We're talking about people that bought things at 14 times rent multiples and that kind of thing. And for those of you that don't understand what that means, that's big time money for a place that you're banking on its potential. So you just turned around and told all those people that just purchased places like that, you're not going to get a return on your money. Now, will this last forever? Probably not, because there's enough strength in the landlords that can fight this and somehow turn around or get adjusted down the line. But for the short term, you're going to have a big problem. Very big problem. You're going to have landlords refusing to put money into places. You're going to have other landlords that are going to refuse to rent places out. If they can't get their money, it just doesn't benefit them. They're going to keep them vacant. And you're going to have half-empty buildings in a lot of cases. And depending on how deep the pockets are of the individual landlord or the management company, they can get away with it. You can't force them to rent it out if they don't want to. If they choose to keep a place vacant, it's their prerogative. They own the property. Unless they decide to, the city decides to enforce another rule that says you have to rent it out if you have a vacancy, which I wouldn't put it past them. Now, I'm a little bit biased when it comes to this because I do manage properties. I'm a landlord myself, and it's something that does affect me personally, but it's not as devastating to me as it is to a lot of other people, because I'm not somebody that's running multiple thousands of properties simultaneously. A few hundred units I manage, and I have a handful of units that I'm a landlord of, and that's it. So, does it make my life difficult? Does it make my wallet hurt a little bit? Yeah, it does. But it's not going to kill me. But there's other people that are going to be in really bad shape. They're going to be in really bad shape, and you're going to see one by one starting to put their buildings up on sale because they just can't afford to keep them anymore. And that's a shame. It's a damn shame that this is happening between, I've talked about this in the past, the property taxes going through the roof and escalating to absolutely insane rates with no restrictions. The water and sewer charges just clobbering people. And anybody that has properties in the city and they see what their DEP bill comes in, understand this completely. It is insane the amount of money that's being paid to the water and sewers. Trevor, you're in the Queens, right? What's the biggest charge you have on your DEP bill? Yeah, and how much more is the sewer than the actual water? A lot more. Usually it's like double, triple what the normal water charges are. It's insane. It is crazy. It doesn't make any sense of why it's so expensive. Now you're putting restrictions on people that already have higher rates. Utilities aren't getting cheaper. They're escalating on a yearly basis. So now in a world where they were restricted already to do increases on these stabilized type of units, now they're even more restricted and put in a more difficult position to be able to sustain. Well, what do you think is going to happen? You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to be a super genius. You don't have to be Wile E. Coyote super genius to realize that this is a bad situation. It's going to be a combustible situation going down the line. If this lasts for a long, extended period of time, it's going to be painful, not only to the landlord side, it's going to be very difficult for the tenants as well. Because now, because of the situation where you have tenants that, well, let's put it like this. You have a big portion of tenants that can't afford these increases. And I understand that. If they're in the unit and you make insane increases on a year-to-year basis, you're putting them in a position where they can't live anymore. They have no place. And honestly, if this were to occur without any restrictions, you'd have a lot of homeless people in there. And that's part of the reason why the courts are very tenant-friendly, especially in the city, because you talk to the prosecutors, the attorneys, and the judges, they'll tell you, yeah, we know it's lopsided, but if we did it a different way, we're basically going to have a bigger situation of people not having homes to live in. So they make the eviction process very difficult, even when they don't pay. But that being said, if we have an additional amount of units where people are being thrown out of their place because they just can't afford the increases, you're going to have an even bigger situation. So some restrictions are necessary, especially if the people are living in the places, in order to sustain and keep this infrastructure and system going. I'm sure a lot of landlords are not going to like what I'm telling you, but it's just the way life is if you're a major metropolis. So you take that into consideration. But here's the thing. Once it actually does vacate, why are you restricting those landlords of improving their property? You're putting them in a position where they don't want to spend any money in there. And here's the problem. You might have a lot of tenants that are more than happy to pay the premium of that apartment because of all the improvements and upgrades made to it, but now don't have that option. They're going to have to buy an older unit that hasn't been updated in 20 years. They're going to have to rent a unit that is a little worn down, a little sorry looking, a little discombobulated, or whatever you want to call it. Why? Because the landlords just can't afford to fix these things. Like the public and the media loves to give everybody the story of how landlords are the big bad boogeyman. And you know what? There's some really bad landlords out there, slumlords. They really do a number on their tenants, and they definitely are really horrible people, and they do the wrong thing. Don't get me wrong. I understand that. I've seen it with my own eyes, and I feel for all the tenants that are under those situations. And those landlords should be going after, and they should be chased down and forced to do the right thing, whatever the case is. That, I'm with it. But that's not the majority of landlords out there. You have a lot of landlords that have maybe 6-family building that are barely breaking even. Or, they just barely get enough money to pay their mortgage and their expenses. And sometimes not even that much, and they're working hard at their normal job every day to make up the difference of their bills and what they're bringing in. Because a lot of times the income that they're bringing in is a lot less than what the expenses are, because they're escalating on a yearly basis. So that's something that a lot of people don't really understand, and the media and the public eye doesn't really care or focus on, because that's not the good story. The little landlord is not the one they care about. They want to go after the big bad wolf. They want to go after the slumlord. They want to go after the person that's making a killing and making people feel horrible about themselves by putting them in a really horrible and unsafe environment. And I get that. I get it, and I am not. And you want to expose them, you want to make an example of them, do it. That's the way to do it. You definitely go after, but don't dismiss that smaller person. It's almost like what they do a lot of times to the small business owner, or what they do a lot of times to that middle class person in the economic levels. They're basically being put in a position where they're being squeezed out, or they're being put in the position where they're losing everything. You have a person that has, again, we'll use that same example of the 6-family house, that they're barely cutting even. Their mortgage is barely getting covered, and all their expenses, and little by little they're getting in debt more and more and more. They have to refinance or pull an equity line or whatever the case is. And at the end of the day, they say, I give up. They put their hands up and say, I'm done. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I can't even afford to feed my family to sustain this building. It's happening. It's happening already. And I promise you, now with this new law, it's going to happen even more. So they end up putting it on the market and selling for whatever they can. But here's the problem. When you're going to get a ton of buildings like this with similar landlord mindsets that are going to say, I give up, you're going to have a flood of properties on the market. And people are going to have their options to pick whatever they want to pick. But if there's no potential growth and no potential ability to increase the income and the revenue streams, people are not going to be biting. The banks are not going to be giving the mortgages because it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make it a sound investment. So what's going to happen? The prices are going to start to drop. They're going to start to drop. They're going to start to drop. They're going to start to drop. And then what happens? What happens then? Yeah, you're going to have a situation. That's what's going to happen. It's really unfortunate, and I really don't understand the logic of how they're going. And I don't care what people tell me as far as, oh, it's the rich versus the poor, or whatever the case is. It's a question of keeping the economy working on a fair scale. And right now, it's become so unbalanced. It went from one extreme to the other. I mean, the stabilization laws and rent control laws went into place years ago to avoid having landlords take advantage of the tenants, because they basically were doing anything they wanted to the tenants. Okay, I get it. That makes sense. And I'm for it. But it's going the other extreme now, where you've taken away just about all the rights from the landlords and the ability to be able to sustain and grow. That just makes it not worth it for them to continue doing this. And this will happen. Now they're giving an opportunity for the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer. Because now you're going to have the ones that with the really deep pockets, and I mentioned what they're going to do. They're going to basically absorb the losses. They're going to keep vacancies going. They're going to basically put a lot of people in a position where they're going to be forced to change the laws. And they're going to be able to wait until that happens. But the middle class building owner, the one with the smaller buildings, the one that barely has enough money to keep that one piece of property going, is not going to be able to hold out. And it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a major problem. So congrats for passing such a wonderful law to really cause another piece of division within our people. Because that's basically what happened. There could have been a middle ground. There could have been something that was thought out in a much more intelligent fashion. And there could have been something that basically was applied that would help both sides. And believe me, there are ways to be able to help both sides equally without causing this divide. And now, not only do you have a divide, you have a sense of animosity from both sides of the spectrum, and within their all rights by feeling that way. Now you cause a major issue. I don't know what sometimes I don't like thinking about conspiracy theories, and I'm not into that at all. But it makes me feel like there's a conspiracy theory. Is this somebody behind the scenes or some group behind the scenes that are doing this to force properties to get devalued? So somebody go in, or groups could go in and swipe up all these properties and then change the laws again to something that's more acceptable, and now you just got the deals for a lot cheaper? Is that maybe that's what it is? Is it because all the pricing and the valuations of everything within Brooklyn, Queens, the city, Bronx, you name it, were skyrocketing to such an extreme? And they were. Those properties were really going through the roof at a rapid pace. Is it to hold them, bring them back to earth, give people a good opportunity to swipe up some more properties, and then let them grow again after they change the laws again? Maybe. Time will tell. That's definitely, again, a conspiracy theory, but it's not that outrageous. It really isn't. It's like almost manipulating the stock market, doing something to affect the values of everything, and then changing a law to bring them back to prosperity. It's possible. I'm not going to say that's what's going on, but read between the lines. I think you could think about it. That what's the next step? You're going to tell people that have 3-family houses that they can't have their apartments at free market, or the people that 2-family houses? Is that what's going to happen? Then you're going to see even more pain happening for people. But we're only a step away from there. You know, I don't want to sound uneducated or angry about the whole situation. I just don't like the way things are usually changed, and there is like almost like a broad stroke that says, okay, we're just changing everything and we're going to do it this way because that's the way we think it's necessary. And it's usually done from individuals that don't have the knowledge or don't have the education of how it's going to affect everything down the line. They kind of go through channels of how they're going to keep in office and how they're going to keep their titles or positions or whatever they're going to do in order to appease the masses. So I think it's a real situation, and you know, I go back to the Amazon situation. Look what happened there. We could have had a really great situation where Long Island City, Astoria, Jackson Heights, Woodside, Sunnyside, that whole area could have went through a boom. So what happened? They pull it all away. Why? Because was that the best thing for the entire community, for those areas? Absolutely not. But it was the best thing that the mass of voters that would get these people back into their positions was. And honestly, when election time comes around, I think they're going to get a backlash because of that. There's going to be some repercussions, and I feel that you're going to have a scenario where people are really going to be fed up by how things are worked out, and I don't know. It's really, I'm happy. I really am happy. I no longer live in the city, even though I operate and do business in the boroughs, and I deal with real estate in the boroughs and that kind of thing. I'm so happy I don't live there on a day-to-day basis anymore, because it's become a very difficult environment to live in. And don't get me wrong, Nassau County has its own issues. Every place has its own issues. But I'm like so irritated by the way it's gone. Everybody has their own opinion. Don't get me wrong. I'm like right now I'm sounding off on this because it's really something that absorbs so much of my time. You know how many landlords I get on a daily basis calling me and say, "How is it going to affect me?" People are managing their properties. They're saying, "What are we going to do now?" And I got to come up with strategies, and I got to go with a system course of how we're going to approach on a case-to-case everybody's individual properties. We're going to have to revamp everything again. It's a tough situation. I really, I'm not happy about it. It's a waste of time completely. They could have found a better way to do this, and as usual, the heads up dropped the ball. That's my 2 cents about it. Anybody who wants to really talk about it more, I could talk about it for days. And you want me to get into real details about it? Because there are a lot of details, and I just gave you a quick glance of what the process is. I could do that as well. But it's not a good scenario. It really is not. And I assure you that it's not a permanent one. It could get worse. Somebody that takes office could actually make it worse. The old saying how they say things can get worse. Well, yeah, they could. Trust me, they could. Depends on who's in charge. It could get worse. It is what it is, and that's basically, again, my 2 cents on everything. So I don't know how everybody saw this past week as far as momentum and movement in the markets, whether you're a professional or sellers or something. But activity did start to ramp up again for a second week in a row. And it's very encouraging. Last week we had a 4th of July weekend, which was a dragged out weekend from Thursday, which was the 4th of July. But there were a lot of open houses, there were a lot of showings, and there was a lot of activity going on that weekend. And it did funnel and make its way through to this weekend. And there is a encouraging sign that more and more people are making calls. They're coming to visit homes. They're getting more and more motivated again. I mean, it could be an effect of the low rates that we still have, and the rates can't get better than what they are. And it could be a situation where the inventory is leveling off, and it is. You know, the continuous weeks of growing inventory kind of like leveled off right now. You're not getting as many new homes on the market as you was on a day-to-day and a week-to-week basis. So that's pretty good too. The reports came out, which was pretty good as far as Nassau and Suffolk is concerned. I don't know if anybody read it in the news day, but you definitely did have a uptick of everything, and they took those numbers straight from MLS and did it on a year-over-year. I was actually interviewed on that article as well. You know, so usually every quarter we usually get calls from the writers asking us questions of how we get the pulse, because what they're seeing from the numbers a lot of times is not necessarily the same thing that the people with the feet on the ground are seeing. Because I could promise you, a lot of times the numbers are playing catch up to what the reality is. But there was some growth that happened for year over year, and I do like the uptick that we're seeing from week to week these past couple of weeks, because there was a couple of weeks where everything slowed down a little bit, and it was a little bit concerning. Did we hit our plateau? Did we hit our flat line point? Just amped up again and started to move again. So that's a very positive thing. Let's see what happens now on the multifamily buildings in the boroughs. I just hope that this whole scenario doesn't cause a lot of issues for people, because it's a problem. I'm not going to keep going back to that, because I really am lit up about that. It's just not a scenario that I'm really happy about. But it is what it is, and I can't really do anything about it other than rant on the radio and look like a maniac angry. So it is what it is. So the one thing I'm going to bring up again is that we do have our official time of being in the 95th anniversary of WGBB, 1240. I can't emphasize how big of a deal it is for this station to be close to the century mark. I kind of wish that we did something celebratory, and I'll celebrate. There's Trevor trying to pretend that he doesn't hear me.
Working on something.
You know, but it would be really nice if we do something celebratory about it.
I'm working on something.
Trevor's working on something, and I'm all for it, and I'll contribute, and I will contribute to it, and I will, even if it means that I have to put money out of my pocket to help with that, I will do that, because I think it's a big deal.
I think so too.
It is a really big deal. We're the oldest radio station on Long Island.
That's right.
And we should be proud of that. Radio has been something that has been an afterthought with all the innovations and all the things that have been brought to this world, like streaming, web services, and podcasts, or whatever the case is. Pandora's, Sirius Radio, all that stuff. But you know what? There's nothing like having that station where you have to find it on the dial, put it in your car, and know that you'll have that one person that will be there at a certain time with you every day or every week, that you don't have to pay to listen to, is available to you. Well, you have to pay for the radio if you don't have a radio, but most people have a radio in a car, and there's some kind of comfort in knowing that you have that available to you. It's almost like having television available to you. Yes, most of the world has cable or satellite or whatever they have, but you know what? If we did it, we could still have a couple of regular stations and know that we could get our news, we could get anything we need. And you know, I like to see certain institutions stay in place and be the beacons and the things that are carry the torch. And I'm glad to be with the station, and I am very happy to hopefully be here for the 100th year, unless they knock me off before that. I'm sure if I don't get that Starbucks endorsement within that time period, I'm sure they're going to kick me off. So Starbucks, listen, I need you to give me that endorsement. But you know, I'm not going to ramble on about that, but that's really something that I feel that is very worthy of keep talking about, and I'm going to keep talking about it until the end of the month, because this is our anniversary month. And that's my piece on that. And that being said, I am going to sign off now, and I am going to hope everybody has a great week, have a great night, and hopefully a very productive week for all you professionals out there, and sell a lot of homes. And I'll be again with you next Monday from 6 to 7, just like every Monday on the Real Estate Plate. Have a great night.